we're going to spend a few minutes talking about cybersecurity. A lot of it's the stuff you probably hear all the time, but what we learn is just, we can't say it enough. It's kind of one of those things. It's kind of repetitive. There's new things that's coming, but really like the way that we are aware of it and the way that we stay kind of in tune with it hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, if you're use some common sense and you kind of pay attention to some things, then you can stay on top and keep yourself pretty secure. I think what we're dealing with now is just the number of attacks that's coming. It's kind of funny because with AI, you would think these bad actors would get better at like giving us emails, but they don't. It's just, I think AI is kind of, what AI is doing in the world of cybersecurity, it's ramping up the number of threats. And just the tools to elicit a cyber attack is available to anyone now on the web. Like you don't even have to be, I'm 53, so War Games was my movie, back in the day. And it was some really smart kid at home with a computer that takes over the Pentagon. Nowadays, you don't even have to know how to use more than TikTok, and you can take down an organization. So, gone are the days of it having to be somebody that really understands networks or understands operating systems. You can collect a few things off the internet, know how to run a script, and it's kind of, that's the danger of it, is you really got, it's just become, I guess, a lot more illicit in the types of attacks that they can do. So I'm Neil Dyer. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Southeastern University. I've been in this role since 2020, but I worked at Southeastern prior, so I was the network administrator back in 2012-13 timeframe when our IT department was all of 6 people. Joe Powell was our resident Genzabar guy. He knew everything about Genzabar. We had a director. We had Cassie Berry, who's still with us, ran everything administrative and ran our help desk. And then there was a couple of us that kind of was out in the field doing different things. And that was about it. To today, we have about 20 people in IT. We're still about 20 people short in IT. And, but it's been a great ride. My career started in technology back in 1990 at Publix. Worked at their help desk for several years. And so we'd sit at a green screen and we would monitor ATMs, and we had rows of numbers for each ATM. And at 18 years old, I could call out and have several $100,000 delivered to an ATM. I think back now and I'm like, gosh, they were really dumb. But we sat there and would monitor ATMs, and then we moved into network support and those types of things. And then through my career, I've worked with Watkins Motor Lines, a distillery over in Lake Alfred, where it was just me and one other guy was their IT department as they continued to blow up into an organization. And it's been a lot of fun. I've touched just about everything there is to touch in the world of IT, and I get the opportunity to lead one of the best teams in the world of IT. I'd put our team up against any organization's IT department, and they're really amazing, and we really love serving our students through technology. Our team is truly not one of those teams that does technology for the sake of technology. They understand that everything they're doing supports our faculty. Everything they're doing supports the staff who support our faculty, and then everything we do supports the success of a student. So we're constantly looking at ways that we can increase the student experience so that we can make their job easier. So that's the goal of everything we do. So while we play a major role in the world of cybersecurity, it's really you guys that are our cybersecurity agents. Because you guys are the ones that get the attacks, the emails, the different things, the smishing stuff on your phone. And so with all those things, I think it's our responsibility to really all be aware and really all be equipped to handle these things. Just our agenda is going to talk a little bit about threats, vulnerabilities, and risk, cyber threats, identifying phishing emails, which we're all getting really good at that, I think, passwords and MFA, which I think back just 4 years ago, we instituted MFA here at the university, and it was painstaking. There was a lot of upset people that we now have to do this, and now it's no matter what login you have, MFA is attached to it. So it's kind of become commonplace. And then our initiatives here at SEU. Since it's just a handful of us, I'll give you a peek into one of our email tools, into a dashboard on that. And you can kind of get a peek on how how many attacks are hitting us. We've had over 6,000 in just the last week. And so it's almost like these guys understand, I say guys generically, but like our bad actors understand school's starting back, and boom, I mean, it just shot up. We just recently had an attack last week with the deans. You might have gotten some emails where it was a document of sexual misconduct that you need to take a look at, and it looks like it targeted all the deans and it went out to a ton of faculty. And thankfully, like, we have the ability to pull those documents up on the back end that doesn't affect anything. It didn't have a payload on it, but it could very well had one and collect information from you and then do other things with it. So we'll talk some about those things as well. So threats, vulnerabilities, risk, these are things that we kind of put through our scope as we talk about cybersecurity. These are three important concepts to cybersecurity that are all interconnected. So a threat would be like ransomware. Somebody is trying to take hostage or take captive the data that our institution has. A vulnerability would be like a unpatched Windows laptop. The operating system receives these patches, and so if a machine has gone unpatched, it could be sitting with an open port that should have been closed, and because the programmer used AI to write the code for that, they didn't think about cybersecurity, so this port could be open, and bad actors know that is, and that's a way for them to get in. Like leaving our back door unlocked and going away for a vacation for a week, that's a vulnerability. And so it's the same thing with our operating systems and our machines. The risk is, well, if there was a threat that took advantage of one of our vulnerabilities, what is the risk of that? We actually work with a local organization called Dark Optics, and we basically put him on our network, gave him a regular user account, and said, go to town. Like, you have this Linux operating machine that's on our network. It would be just like any faculty or staff member on our network, and you have a user ID, just a common user ID. With any tools that you have and anything that's available to you, go see what you can do. So we're trying to determine the risk of that. It wasn't good. Like, we have some things that we have to do some work on. So just as so you guys know, like what happened is he was able to get on our network. Now, he's a smart guy. He's worked in the industry for years, so he has some tools. But first thing he did is he started kind of poking around for different accounts. We have some things called sys accounts that are elevated accounts. He was able to kind of find one of those, attach a password cracker to it. We found that we've got to have some conversations with our IT staff about password complexities, and was able to crack a password within a couple of seconds. Was able to grab that password, was able to elevate his privileges, was able to start getting to servers, starting getting to file share, start getting to cloud assets, and then basically had unfettered access to everything at SEU. And so we're like, that's not good. Let's see what we can do to start closing some of those doors. Now, sadly, you're never fully protected. You read in the news all the time, like, multi-million-dollar cybersecurity companies get popped on the regular. So there's no hardened fail-safe that keeps you completely safe. It's all about mitigating the risk and trying to take the threats that are coming in, trying to decrease your vulnerabilities and assessing the risk with those. So you're really we're trying to mitigate risk is what we're trying to do, okay? You could probably get on our network, but with different network segmenting, different tools that's running, different alerts that we get, you might be able to get in and you might be able to get this far, but you're not going to get any further. You might get through Grady Judd's front door, but you're not going to get past the foyer, kind of thing. So that's how we kind of address those things. So look a little bit deeper into some of our cyber threats that we have. Malware is one. I remember several years ago, early 90s, malware was a big deal because you would download these little applications that run on your computer, and what they would be packaged with is something other than what you thought it was. So you'd be downloading maybe a coupon printer, but on that coupon printer would also be a an ad that was like every time you run it, it's like opening multiple screens. You remember back in the day, you could open something and then all of a sudden you get 100 screens that would open up as well. That'd be a great example of malware. It's something packaged with something that you think is, legitimate, but it's probably not. And nowadays, those malware things just aren't an annoyance, but they will download things of their own. Usually it's scripts that will run different actions on your computers or on your network to do things that are malicious. These are like viruses, Trojans, spyware, ransomware. They're generally trying to embed themselves into your machine or your network to then execute different things, send things out to a cloud-based server, or do things on your machine that would lock certain access down or gather information. So it's like a cancer, essentially, in a network world. Cyber threats. 75% of ransomware attacks against higher education result in encrypted data, and 35% also result in data exfiltration, like sending it out to someone else. So encrypting our data basically means they're locking it up and we don't have the key. So we wouldn't have access to it. So say someone got into our network and they were able to dig in, and they were able to dig into Zanzibar, and they were able to lock everyone out of Zanzibar. That'd be a big deal, because then we couldn't work on student records, we couldn't do billing, we couldn't do our finances. That would lock everything out. That's probably a very low risk of that type of thing, but say we've got spreadsheets of information that we keep. Well, they could get in and they could encrypt all of those spreadsheets, and now we wouldn't have access to any of those. So that's what encryption looks like. You actually, if you have a Windows computer, we encrypt your drive. So that BitLocker password that you have to put in, what it does is it will encrypt your drive. So if someone steals your computer and they try to take the hard drive out of it and plug it into another computer, if they don't have that password, they can't unlock it, they can't decrypt it. So that's a safety device that we do on the Windows computers for those. So it's basically just a way of kind of locking you out of it, or if you have the key, you can lock other people out of it and you can get to it. The collection of data and sending it out somewhere else is the scariest thing, actually, because ransomware attackers found that they could do this and most people would pay to get their data back. We've found a lot of ways around that. We've gotten really good at keeping people from doing that. So now what they've said is, well, okay, we'll just take your data and sell it out on the internet. These people are making money. Back in the day, people just did it to get some street cred. Hey, I hacked into this and did this, and I left them a funny message. It was annoying. Nowadays, it's all about money. People are doing it to get money. They want to sell your data. They want to hold your data captive to get you to pay for it. But it's a money-making machine. Is what it is. Now, we do have some that they're hacktivists. They will hack things like federal governments or municipalities or things like that in a way to make a stand. So that one maybe is not about money, but it is about achieving something. This number right here has actually gone up in the 2 years since this was studied, but we're generally just a little bit south of 2 million now. To the point of this has gotten so expensive that a lot of cybersecurity insurance companies are folding because they can't, and it happens at such a high rate that they're just saying we can't take that risk. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, with these cyber threats and going to Zanzibar, does the BitLocker keep our grades safe? I mean, is there a way a hacker could get in and steal our grades?
No, not. There's always a play.
Okay, but it's not.
But Zanzibar, what they do is in their environment and their architecture of their servers and databases, they have a high level of security in that as well. So they're cloud-based, so their servers and such are in Virginia, I think, and basically they have heavy security. Just like we would on our stuff, they have that on their environment as well. So it would take a lot to get to that data.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
New.
Yeah.
But someone could hack you
Yes.
and access the grades. faking it's you.
They could.
Which, if was a student want to change their grade, they would not have a high level, but they would try to high Q and access.
You're right.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Impersonation's a big one.
okay,
It is.
good to know, thank you.
Sadly, higher education remains one of the least prepared industries to defend against and deal with ransomware or other attacks. I would say we're ahead of the curve at SEU on that. Our leadership has invested well. I would say we still got work to do, as is any organization, because you're constantly playing a defensive game. You're never going to be on the proactive side of things, so you're always reacting to what's out there in the wild. But we've done a good job. But a lot of higher institutions aren't prepared at all. We will regularly find vulnerabilities at other schools that's like, that should have been closed. You know, those ports should have been closed 10 years ago. You should have stopped allowing that type of access sometimes even like 15, 20 years ago. Like, why are you still doing that? So we're really ahead of the game. We've got some really great professionals in that area that are pushing us to even stay more protected. So while I would say we're in good shape, but we can never be ignorant to that. So
Do we help other schools?
we are very collaborative. Our IT team is constantly working with and talking to other schools.
Cool.
I attend a lot of tech conferences, and so I try to stay very well connected to kind of the heartbeat of what's happening. And if you haven't had the chance to get out and talk to folks from other schools, sometimes you're like, I just don't understand why SEU does this, or we feel so far behind in this. We're light years ahead of a lot of schools in how they operate, business processes, collaboration. Even in our tech world, we're doing really well. Some types of cyber attacks are man-in-the-middle attacks. These are interesting because folks will have tools set up to intercept different things. Texting is one. So when if you have MFA where you text in a code, we've found that those can actually be vulnerable to a man-in-the-middle attack. A tool can be set up that's kind of sitting there listening, and it's listening for the communication between things, and it can grab something, intercept it, and then like Hockey was saying, then they could then impersonate you and log in as you, or you're requesting an MFA prompt and it's not going to you any longer, it's going to someone else. So that would be an example of a man in the middle. This is less, I believe, now than ever, because we've found ways to kind of combat that in a way that it's less likely to occur in a lot of the situations that we have. The attacker they're eavesdropping essentially and can steal sensitive data or impersonate each party. Like our email, like our Google email, so it's encrypted in transition. So even if a man in the middle was to encrypt a message that you're sending, they can't read it because it's encrypted. So if there was a digital tool out there and it's picking that message up, it's not going to say, hey, I'm sending you, this account information. It's going to be garbled and encrypted, and they can't do anything with that. So then when it's received on the other end, it's decrypted and the message is read. So we've gotten pretty good, I think, at working with these type of attacks. Email hijacking is one that's still a big deal. You can spoof a legitimate access. We actually sadly experience this a lot with our dual enrollment students because we have some challenges with them getting logged in and things like that. We don't have MFA on these kids' accounts. So a lot of times they will get hijacked, and then folks will then be sending emails from, so-and-so at seu.edu, but it's not coming from that person, and then it's getting sent out. We've actually experienced a lot of that over the last year and a half or so, where you'll get these emails about maybe a internship opportunity for our students, and you can make $500 a week in this insurance. It's, again, you really think through the email and it's ridiculous, but people will sign up for it. We actually had somebody last year send Bitcoin. I mean, so it's, it can end up in a payload. So, or DNS spoofing, basically domain name service is DNS, and it's like seu.edu is a DNS entry. Really, that address is like 153.21. You know, it's a IP address is essentially what it is, but DNS gives those things real names like seu.edu. So what these folks will do is they'll spoof that seu.edu, and you believe that you're going to the right place or you're getting something from the right organization, and you're actually not. That's why it's important to pay attention to the details if something seems unrealistic or something seems too good to be true or something, you know, kind of makes you question it. We'll look at how we can pay attention to those details. Let's see. Denial of service attacks. This is a big one with websites. Basically, it gets flooded with requests to the millions, and basically the server just can't handle it. It will shut down. We actually had this happen to seu.edu, I think maybe 2 years ago, and it shut down the website. And basically, they'll just have a bot or a script that's running, and it's just sending like millions of requests to the server, and the server can't handle it, and then just shuts down. This has been around for a long time. Denial of service attacks have been around since the 90s, so it's pretty easy for someone to do that. It's pretty easy to, and it's hard. It can be hard to combat against, but there's generally not anything like gained from it other than it shuts something down. So it's not an attack that like is going to steal data. DDoS attacks are very common to that. It's when multiple devices are kind of coming at a website or a service. No, I don't want to do updates right now. And just these other types of attacks are things that bombard servers into just really trying to get it to shut itself down. So these cyber threats, social engineering is a big one. Because we provide so much information nowadays out on the internet with LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Like we're literally like sharing all our like laundry out there. And what people do is they will social engineer, and they'll use that information that's out there online to craft an attack. What's interesting now is you have, because attacks have become a business, you will have contractors that will essentially do all the social engineering and then sell that information out. Other people will pick that information up and then craft an attack off of the social engineering. So it's almost like they have departmentalized the ability to attack. And so there's a whole business around just social engineering. You can create these scripts, and basically it can go out and say, give me all the information on the C-suite for this information, including emails and names. And then they'll sell that to someone, and then someone else will craft a attack that's maybe impersonating these users and trying to get you to go get Dr. Engel $50 worth of gift cards because he really needs it, but he's never communicated with you before in the world, but now he needs you to go get these gift cards for him. So a lot of times those things come from social attacks. They'll gather information, they'll get all this things, they'll find out who's the CFO of this organization, and we're going to hit them with different kind of accounts payable attacks. So we'll see, and when we look at our email dashboard of attacks, and it shows us like a top 10 of the people that's attacked. You'll see a lot of times Dr. Engel stays in that list, Dr. Hackett stays in that list, our accounts payable email stays in that list, and a lot of that is because of social engineering. They know those are the people that deal with those types of things. Let's see here. I'm a little lost in this presentation. I didn't create it, so I'm fumbling through it. So phishing is common. You see it every day in your email. They're fishing for information. They're trying to get you to give them something out of an email that's most of the time ridiculous. It's too good to be true. There's a level of urgency with it, but they're trying to get you to act upon that. Smishing is the same thing, but in text messaging. Often that results in those, hey, this is Amy Franklin. Can you go get me this? And you're like, I've never talked to Amy Franklin. And then if you dig into it, you look and it's like some weird, 853 or 83 area code, and you're like, this doesn't make sense. Phishing is voice calls. My dad is 89 years old, and we had to take his phone away from him because he would get these calls, literally, hey, I'm your grandson. I've been arrested. I need you to come send me some money. Those types of things. Sadly, a lot of these phishing calls are to the elderly folks that are just trusting to the person on the other end of the phone, but they're trying to get you to act on something. Piggybacking is a way. These are, piggybacking, tailgating, these are all physical attacks. Someone looking over your shoulders, you type in a password, somebody, kind of loitering around you, getting information off your screen. Me on an airplane watching your movie on your phone because I got one in front of me, but yours is more interesting, and I try to make the words come out to that's someone looking over your shoulder and trying to gain unauthorized or authorized access through you. Tailgating is, it's that idea of you're going into a secure area and somebody comes up behind you and you nicely hold the door open for them, but you really shouldn't. There's people out there that take advantage of those things, sadly. So if you're a trusting person, people are going to take advantage of that, but doesn't mean we still don't be trusting. Our threat actors are the bad guys. Hackers, insiders, nation states, hacktivists, script kiddies. I don't even know what that is. It's just people trying to do nefarious things with technology. They're trying to take advantage of you, and they're trying to get something from you or trying to get you to do something that would be malicious. And it's, as ridiculous as most of them sound, people still send them because people still fall prey to them. And that's why you keep getting them, because people are responding to them and they're getting money or they're getting attention or just whatever it is. But it's on the rise. So the motivation, this is some of what I've talked about, but there's a wide range of motivations. Most of it's financial gain. We're seeing a lot more espionage. We've seen a lot of that in the news in the last 5-10 years, with nation states attacking other nation states in a way that manipulates elections or manipulates different things in those other nations, whether for good or for bad. But it's generally in the best interest of the one that's attacking. Those types of things, political or social agendas. I come from the world of I cast my vote and I trust that my vote's being counted in a way, but I think we've found that it comes into question. You're like, what is actually happening with that? Because a lot of things are done, technologically, a lot of things are done systematically, and so can we just trust these things any longer? Because sadly, there's people that take advantage of it. Grudges, reputation. We find that on social media, there's so much bullying that's happening just in a technical way around that. I consider that a cybersecurity issue as well, but these threat actors can be bad people, and they're motivated by many different things. Phishing emails, you guys see these a lot, but this is just a lot of things you've already heard, but a lot of great reminders. What do you look for? Threatening negative consequences if you don't act upon what they're telling you to do. An urgency that seems like I've got to do this right now. What person do you know that's really going to create that level of urgency or anxiety in you in an email? It just doesn't make sense, but a lot of times we get caught up in it. I will tell you, the people that I know that are smart and very intelligent in this way that have gotten caught was when they were just off guard. They were sitting and watching TV and scrolling through email and clicked on something, before they knew it, they're like, I've been attacked. And we get our guard down because we get so much communication through email that it a lot of times, as ridiculous as the email or the scheme seems, we will fall prey to them. I will tell you, be careful of QR codes. Now, conference like this, somebody you trust puts a QR code up, that's probably good. but just random QR codes out in the wild, like, oh, that looks interesting. You gotta be careful scanning those because they can have a payload in them that could be dangerous. You know, kind of the telltale signs is emails with typos, spelling errors, poor grammar, looking for noticeable errors in grammar or spelling. Legitimate organizations are typically using spell checking tools, or they're using tools that's writing those emails for them. So errors suggest the email not be from a reputable source. Unfamiliar greetings or salutations, like if you get a lot of emails from Chris and he always says, you know, hey, what's up? And that's kind of his common thing, but all of a sudden you get one from Chris and it's like, hello, my friend. You know, wait a minute, you know, that doesn't seem right, you know. It's kind of keying in on those types of things. Inconsistencies in email addresses. My thing is if I get something that has a bunch of links in it, I hover over that link. And you know, the link might say ups.com, but you hover over it and down in the bottom it actually is some weird address that's not UPS. Or my first thing is I get something and I'm like, I'm not sure about that. I go up to the email addresses, hover over that, and I'm like, this says it's from UPS, but this email domain is from like something else, not a UPS email. And then suspicious attachments. If I'm not expecting something, it's like a phone call. If you're not in my contacts and I get a phone call, I'm not answering it. Attachments, if I'm not expecting an attachment from somebody, I don't open it. I don't care if they said it was, you know, Ed McMahon telling me I won the clearinghouse, I'm not opening it. These are just some different examples of phishing emails. You guys see them on the daily. And it's pointing out these inconsistencies in here. You know, asking for things. You know, it might say Chief Financial Officer, Southeastern University, but that's Phil Schmidt, not Robert Kaiser. So it's putting two and two together. You know, it's just paying attention, and that's why a lot of times people will get caught that shouldn't, because they're just not paying attention. They're thinking about other things or doing other things. A text example. And then how to report these. Because a lot of times I get a text or an email, hey, I got a phishing. Okay, well, we got a way we can report these. So in your email, you can click on the 3 dots over on the right-hand side, and then you can report as phishing. And what that does for my team is they then get a report of that. And what it'll do is it'll basically quarantine that email for you. It puts it in a place where if it was something bad, it can't do anything. And then it reports it to us. So we love it when you report those. We like that. It doesn't, I've had people say, well, we don't want to bother you. Yeah, but that's why we're here. So bother us with those things. Passwords in MFA. You know, passwords are interesting, right? We've got so many of them. I just actually had to buy a password manager because I'm like, you know, I know all this stuff and I probably shouldn't keep all this in a Word document, you know? So I keep it I keep it in a password manager. I would suggest everyone do that. They're cheap, they're available. I can add my entire family to it. My wife and I just recently took a trip, and I was able to tell my boys, like, everything you need is there. Like, the plane goes down, all you gotta do is log into there, everything you need is right there. But over 60% of Americans use the same password for multiple accounts. The problem is, it's easy to remember, but all they gotta do is get one. And then it's easy for them to find out, like, what other things you're a part of, and because a lot of times we list all that stuff out on our social accounts, and it's easy for them to understand that, oh, you bank at Mid-Florida. I wonder if the password I got for that would work for that. Oh, it does, you know, and so sadly that's kind of how it works. 80% of passwords used in successful attempts were 12 characters or less. The longer your password is, the more complex your password is, the harder that password is to crack. Several years ago, there was some studies that said it can just be a long password, 20 characters, why we have 20 characters, and it doesn't have to have complexities in it, it can just be a phrase. You know, I think Back to the Future Part 2 is the best movie ever, you know. That could be your 20-character password, and it could be fine. What we're finding now with the tools that's out there, we need to add complexity back in there. So get prepared. Probably next year we're going to add complexities back to passwords, but I think I can convince them to decrease the number of characters. So, but what we're doing is just trying to keep folks from being able to get into us, and it's a constant game. We're constantly playing defense, and our old defense mechanisms or strategies maybe aren't working right now, so we've got to shift that up. The time to crack welcome 123 exclamation point is 44 seconds. The time to crack vendor 4 outdoors 1 repeated 6 exclamation point. It can take centuries to crack something like that. Don't use that as your password. But you see the difference. MFA is a great tool because it's a fail-safe. I'm logging in and I've got to respond that I'm logging in. I was standing in my kitchen and I recently got a MFA request saying that I was logging into my iCloud account. I was standing in the kitchen making dinner. My wife has her own iCloud account. My kids have their own. I'm not trying to log into my iCloud account. No. And it stopped an attack on my iCloud account, which I have a lot of stuff tied to my iCloud account. So that could have been serious. Now, we become so desensitized now, though, to MFA because we get so many of them that a lot of folks won't pay attention. We had a professor last year, actually, that there was a phishing email that went out. Somebody had replied to it. They had credentials, had his credentials. He somehow, a series of events, they obtained credentials. They logged in as him. We're trying to log in as him. He got an MFA request. He was not actively logging into MFA, but because he'd given his information to TAs, he thought, well, TA's logging in. Yes, it wasn't. It was a login from somewhere over in Europe, and they did some bad things through that person's email. So we become desensitized to it, and that's why we're like, don't share it. Like, if your TA needs access, we can do that another way. Like, but don't give your password because that's the type of things that happen. So, passwords, MFA, those are all big deals. We believe that passwords at least 12 characters. SU requires 20. Like I said, when we move to complexities, we can probably decrease that to help with the convenience. Use passphrases to help remember passwords, but then throw in some other characters to that. Unique passwords for every account. Look, I'm not your Holy Spirit, but I will say one gets hacked, it makes it a whole lot easier for others to get hacked. So think through that. Don't reuse passwords. Don't share your passwords with anyone else, including the help desk. We've changed some practices in the help desk where they used to ask you for a password when they needed to work on their computer. The help desk should never ask you for a password, and if they do, feel free to get with me personally. Because that is your password and it's not to be shared. Now, security and convenience. They're at tension, right? They're always at tension. We want things to be convenient, but to be super convenient, you got to be super lax on security. To be super tight on security, you got to be super lax on convenience. We try to find somewhere in the middle. So with those changes in the help desk, that might mean if someone's working on your computer, they need your password, you might have to hang out there for 10, 15 minutes while they're doing that. Or it might mean, hey, we got to reset your password, which is going to mess up your phone and your iPad, but I don't have to ask you for your password, and when you come back, we'll help walk you through resetting that so you have a new password. Less convenient, more secure, but we're still trying to track that balance there. Don't keep passwords in an unencrypted file, Word document. Don't write passwords down on the back of your keyboard. We're going to try to we're moving to a new single sign-on provider. We used one login the last few years. We're going to be moving to Microsoft Entra, which opens up some new security features and things for us. Passkeys are a new security thing rather than passwords. You might see some of your own personal websites moving to things like passkeys. If you use PayPal, they use passkeys. What it does is I say, yes, I want to use passkeys on this device for PayPal. It'll install like an encrypted file essentially on your device. And when I go to log in, all I got to do is type in I can use my passkey, it uses my face, my biometrics, uses the passkey, logs me in. I don't ever have to type a password in. I don't have to remember one. It's constantly changing, so it can't really be man in the middle grabbing it. And the passkey on here and the passkey at the site are constantly communicating with one another. It's the most secure thing out right now, and that's what we're going to try to move to in the near future. So we're changing providers so that we can then move to something like that, which helps you not have to even keep up with passwords, and it's more secure. So that's kind of one of the initiatives we're doing. We recently, in the last year or so, I guess, we instituted a thing called Abnormal for Email, and it's basically like an email gateway. So what it does is it's using AI to constantly monitor your AI or your email and things that's coming in, and it says, hey, based on anomalies and files and things that I've seen, that file that just hit or that email that just hit your inbox, that's nefarious. I'm going to pull it out. You're never even going to see it. So you might see sometimes you might get a notification on your phone. You got an email, and you go to check your email, and you're like, "Where'd that go?" Well, it was deemed as probably something that could be malicious, and so it pulled it right out of your inbox. It's amazing how many tens of thousands of emails get pulled from your inbox that you never see. That was, probably something sketchy. We also instituted the gray mail folder, which can be annoying, but it saved me so much time. I used to get so many subscriptions and so many vendors, and so gray mail's basically it's not something malicious, but it's something annoying. It's a time waster, and so that gray mail is turned on to kind of grab those things. If something goes there and it shouldn't, you can just literally drag that email from gray mail to your inbox, and AI will stop sending it to gray mail. It'll know, oh, this is good. You want that. You want that Kohl's discount email that you get. So you want to see that in your inbox. And just many different things. We just instituted a thing called a SIEM, SIEM, and it's a log monitoring tool. So we've got all kinds of sources running that's kind of helping protect things. What it does is it aggregates all of those logs, and it separates it into things that's more readable, so that we're not chasing down a false positive. We're only really seeing what's positive, what we need to pay attention to, and it has AI built into it as well that's helping us work through those things. I don't know what time this session ends.
I think it's 11:10.
Okay, so we got a couple minutes. So let me log into this real quick and just give you a sneak peek of something. That's not. I'm on the wrong network, so we can't get to it. So that's kind of an example of our security, is like that recognizes that I'm on a network that shouldn't have access to that, so it blocked me from being able to get to it, but I didn't realize we had that set up. But so back in, actually, this would be back in July. This is a report that we get from this tool. And you can see that since we implemented this, which was about this time last year, we've had 125,000 attacks. Over the last 7 days, in that period, it was like 1,200 attacks. But last week when we got this was up to about 4,000 attacks. And then kind of the attack trends that we see over the course of this week, the different types, like yellow is spam, this purple is phishing credentials. They're trying to get you to give your credentials up. Those types of things. And then you'll see the list of the top affected employees. You'll see that Dr. Engel's actually not in that list, but he normally is. But like admissions email, Dr. Hackett's constantly in that list. There's generally some admissions counselors in there. There's some coaches. A lot of times athletics shows up in these lists. But it fluctuates, but we'll see a lot of the same names. And a lot of that is tied to their position in the organization. So, questions? It's a lot, I know. It can be really scary. We actually just gave an executive update to some of the leadership team this week. And they just, the look on their face was like, can you give us any more bad news, you know? And I said, well, actually the good news is we've made leaps and bounds even from just this time last year. There's some compliance standards that we have to adhere to. And when we first started measuring those metrics, we were about 6% compliant about a year and a half ago. Last year about this time, we were about 13% compliant. We're up now to almost 40% compliance. And so we're going in the right direction and we're working toward the right things. And some of those compliance don't necessarily constitute to like how well protected we are. A lot of them are government imposed, so they say you need things that are probably over and beyond what we really need, but we have to be compliant to those. So, but we're in a good place. We got a good team, and we try to keep you guys protected. But you're the first line of defense, so pay attention to those emails. You know, use smart passwords. You know, use the tools that we've got available to you. If you don't have antivirus at your house, like the antivirus that we use here, Sophos, we have like free versions available of that as well. So if you need that, we can make those available to you. But just be careful out there. Thank you for coming to the session and learning a little bit more about this.